we would have.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. A U.S. judge blocks the deportation of Rumeysa Öztürk, a Turkish student at Tufts University. According to her lawyers, the decision is filed at a federal appeals court after her arrest during a crackdown on pro-Palestinian activists last year. Hong Kong's leader John Lee praises the 20-year sentence given to pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai, calling his crimes severe. The United States, United Kingdom, and the United Nations had condemned the jailing as unjust and urged his release on humanitarian grounds. Jeffrey Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell appears virtually from a Texas prison and refuses to answer the U.S. House Oversight Committee. Chair James Comer says she invokes the Fifth Amendment, blocking questions on Epstein and possible co-conspirators. U.S. President Donald Trump opposes Israel's annexation of the occupied West Bank as international criticism grows. The White House says a stable West Bank is key to Israel's security and regional peace. The United States and Armenia have agreed to cooperate on civil nuclear energy, deepening ties. The move follows a U.S.-brokered South Caucasus peace deal, with Washington seeking to draw Yerevan closer. The UN says it is awaiting clarity on how much of nearby $4 billion in areas the Trump administration will pay and when. UN chief warns of imminent financial collapse as the US confirms it plans a partial payment in the coming weeks. Burkina Faso's transitional parliament has approved a bill banning all political parties, repealing party charters and financing laws, and consolidating power under the military junta led by Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The move drew concerns from the UN rights chief, while the government defended the ban as a reset to end political polarization. According to media reports, Ethiopia is hosting a secret training camp for thousands of fighters from Sudan's Rapid Support Forces, marking the first direct evidence of Ethiopia's involvement in Sudan's civil war. 8 sources, including a senior Ethiopian official, has said that the United Arab Emirates financed the camp. Now for this hour, we start with Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will meet with U.S. President Donald Trump tomorrow at 11 a.m. local time at the White House. The meeting will focus on key regional issues, with Iran negotiations as the top priority, while Netanyahu is expected to present Israel's views ahead of ongoing talks with the U.S., particularly following the recent discussions in Oman. This signals Israel's active role in the diplomatic process with Iran. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Gedalia Blum. He's a Middle East Affairs Analyst, joins us live from Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Blum, for joining us. Good to see you. Now thank you. Now looking at this, what do you think will be the priority, and what do you think will be discussed about Iran with United States and between the United States and Israel?
Well, I think before I get into the details, I just want to say that Israel is a sovereign country. And with that being said, America is a superpower and has tremendous amount of influence over the world, over the region, and especially over Israel. But when push comes to shove, I think that, and we've seen this in previous administrations, that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is not afraid to say no. And I think that this trip is more or less making sure that the plans don't get away without the red lines drawn for Israel. So I just want to point that out first. But when it comes to Iran, of course, we have our red lines, and there have been official statements that have come out that had very much illustrated that Israel was willing and able to take the lead, whether it be with allies or on our own, against the Iranian regime, the nuclear a program, and especially the ballistic missiles program. And I think also Benjamin Netanyahu is going there also making sure that the future of Gaza that also doesn't get away from us as well. I mean, we're seeing that Israel hasn't yet officially joined this peace conference, this peace council, and the only reason why we would actually join is to make sure we have a seat at the table so we hear what they're actually talking about, not because we're actually giving it any kind of credibility, because everybody on the ground has zero optimism that any kind of international community is going to be able to settle the long-standing conflict with Hamas in Gaza.
Right. Thank you for highlighting that. And Mr. Blum, how do you analyze Israel's capacity right now? Because we saw last year the missile from Iran did penetrate the Iron Dome, and it's still fresh in Israeli people's memory, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting because there's a lot of propaganda that has been shared by the Iranian Islamic regime. But for us in Israel, I mean, I'll tell you, even from a personal perspective, one of the pieces of the ballistic missiles that were shot down landed on my roof, and my son, my 16-year-old child, actually has it sitting on his shelf as a memento. Of course, there was injuries and there was death. But when it comes to a full outright war that we were all concerned about with Iran and its proxies, I think that we really got away with a lot. We weren't hit hard, and of course, every single death was a tragedy. But overall, what could have transpired during those 12 days of war could have been significantly worse. Our capabilities to ensure that the ballistic missiles wouldn't enter into Israel en masse was very successful, especially with the help of the United States, of the Jordanians and our regional partners, whether or not they're public allies with us or not. They had no interest in seeing the Middle East blow up, because I'll tell you, I don't know this personally, but of course there's rumors. There's rumors that Israel is a nuclear power, and when you're fighting a conventional war and you have those capabilities, because you face an existential threat. The fact of the matter is, all of the missile defense, all the ballistic missile defense, whether it be from our allies like America, yes, or our cold allies like Jordan and and other countries, they don't want to see Israel hit so hard that we're experiencing what we would say is an existential threat. And so, because escalation would happen extremely fast and hard. So, yeah.
Mr. Blum, thank you very much for sharing that personal experience. Also, ever since then, how has Israeli defense or stance evolved?
I mean, I think we got a lot smarter, and I think that the technology, in order to coordinate a lot of the missile defense systems, because I don't know if a lot of people understand this, but the missile defense system, it's not just one system; it's a multiple systems, depending on what's being fired at us. Is it being long-range intercontinental ballistic missile, or is it a Qassam from Gaza? These are completely different systems, and they work independently, which and so they're actually drawing it all together. But I think that since June, we've been just like the Iranians have been sprinting to replenish their ballistic missiles with the help of China and Russia. I might add, Israel's also replenishing its defense capabilities and offensive capabilities with the help with America. And so we'll see what happens. But I'll tell you, there's optimism on the ground. In fact, the people on the ground are actually waiting for it to happen already. We don't want to keep waiting and wondering what day the attack is going to happen. We are very close with the Iranian people, and we want them to be free, and we want to have direct flights from Tel Aviv to Tehran next week. But that's not going to happen if this stalemate continues. So we from both sides, the people of Israel and the people of Iran are actually waiting for this confrontation to happen and to see the final end of the regime.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blum, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back. We have a breaking news coming in from U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer has stated that negotiations with Indonesia are expected to be finalized in the next couple of weeks, highlighting the country as a key trade partner. Greer has also mentioned that trade discussions with China will intensify ahead of the upcoming meeting between President Trump and President Xi Jinping in April. On the USMCA, Greer has acknowledged that talks with Canada have been more challenging, but emphasized that negotiations are ongoing. Additionally, he has confirmed that bilateral talks with Mexico are also currently underway as part of efforts to continue strengthening trade relations within North America. Now we move on to Iran and Oman. Iran's top security official, Ali Larijani, is in Oman for talks following recent U.S.-Iran discussions in Muscat. Oman's Minister of the Royal Office, Sultan bin Mohammed Al Numani, meets with the head of the Supreme National Security Council in Iran, Ali Larijani, in Muscat. Larijani, who heads Iran's Supreme National Security Council, is set to meet with Omani Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi as well. The discussions will focus on regional developments and economic cooperation between Iran and Oman. Larijani is also expected to visit Qatar after his stay in Oman. Now we welcome back Mr. Blum. He's joining us live from Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Blum, for staying with us. Now, what's the relationship between Oman and Iran?
I mean, I'll tell you, it sounds pretty crazy. That Oman is really they're betting on the Islamic regime of surviving. It doesn't make sense to it makes sense to host the negotiations. You want to be a host, but when you start to take that to the next level and start working diplomacy, start investing in economic development and cooperation between Oman and the Islamic regime, you're essentially saying, listen, I'm on your side. I want you to survive, and I'm going to invest in your survival. What's going to happen the day after with the country of Iran under new leadership? They are not going to have relationships with Oman. Israel certainly not. The United States probably isn't going to have to. So it's really, I think, maybe Oman. I mean, nobody's ever talked about Oman in the last I don't know how many decades. So now that they're hosting in these negotiations and all eyes are on there, maybe they're maybe they're thinking that they're not too big for their shoes, and so I really don't know what the inside word is, but I don't think that's a very smart move. I think if anything, you become a neutral player and you host the negotiations and you make sure that people have a place to sleep and that they have security and transportation. And that the air conditioning works. And I think that's it. I think once you go beyond that, I think that you are playing with fire, because the day after, everybody's looking at the day after without the leadership of the Islamic regime leading the people of Iran.
So do you think, as you know, we know that it's not just Oman, there are some other countries too still having relationship with Iran, right? It's not just Oman, it's Russia, it's China, maybe it's other countries as well. So do you think they're betting on no regime change? Do you think there's a difference of ground reports or understanding between these countries and the West and also Israel?
I mean, listen, I don't really think they have any love to the Islamic regime. I think what they're looking at the Islamic regime as strategic partners, and I see the Middle East still as a battleground for the Cold War, and so you see China and Russia is aligned with Iran. Now you're seeing Turkey looking to move in and align with themselves with Iran as well, and you're seeing a number of the Gulf states, and then you see Israel in the West, and then you see some other Gulf states aligning with the West, and I think that you're seeing this East meets West kind of battle, and I think those like Russia and China are looking at at Tehran and the leadership there not as an ally per se, although they do have cooperation, they do have interest in them being in power, but the vacuum that would be created if they were going to leave, and the people then rise up and call for free and fair elections and have a liberal democracy, that not only puts China and Russia on warning, but the whole Middle East, all Saudi Arabia, who has had an election ever, Jordan. I mean, you're talking about this movement of the Cold War, which is essentially the free movement of people, the liberal Western values and democracy, fighting against tyranny, communism, Islamism. And so I think that's what we're seeing here, is that they're seeing kind of like that maybe Tehran could be part of like the House of Cards. If Tehran falls, who else could be next? And could there be another Arab Spring in order to challenge the levers of power that are in the region and beyond?
With that, I'd like to thank Mr. Blum for joining us from Eli and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Russia. Russia's FSB security service has detained a third suspect in connection with an attempt to assassinate senior military intelligence officer Vladimir Alexeyev. This follows an attack last week targeting Alexeyev, which has now led to further arrests. According to Russian news agency, the FSB confirmed the detention today. The investigation continues as authorities work to uncover more details behind this incident. Russia's FSB security service has detained a third suspect in connection with an attempt to assassinate senior military intelligence officer Vladimir Alexeyev. This follows an attack last week targeting Alexeyev, which has now led to further arrests. According to Russian news agency, the FSB has confirmed the detention today. The investigation continues as authorities work to uncover more details behind this incident. Now for this discussion, we welcome Professor Georgi Toleraya. He's a professor at Russia Academy of Science. Thank you very much, Professor Toleraya, for joining us again. Good to see you.
Hello.
Now, can you tell us what do we know so far about the arrests that has happened in relation to the assassination attempt of the senior military intelligence officer?
Well, I would say that this time the action was taken by Russian police and FSB, and special service was taken remarkably swift. And of course, this is also the product of our good cooperation with United Arab Emirates, who expelled the suspect immediately. He wanted to, the killer, he immediately took the plane to Dubai, and he was returned. That is very remarkable. And now I think the special services have all the suspect in their hands, but for one lady, a Ukrainian who fled to Ukraine already. And it's almost 100% clear that this was the killing, the action planned and executed by Ukrainian special services. So it, of course, has very great diplomatic repercussions. But anyway, if we speak about the work of security services, it's very good. Although, of course, it raises questions why the security for the top Russian military leaders was not provided. That's already not the first time that the high-ranking generals and people have no security protection, that they live in just in ordinary flats, in ordinary Moscow city living quarters without any special regime. I think it's time to think about some special measures to protect these people and other people who are involved in the military operation and the government of the state, because we're at war, and there's a little bit of lax security for these people, and more should be invested into this sphere to prevent the recurrence of such incidents in the future. So it's clear that Ukrainians will continue these terrorist activities in Russian soil, and that has to be dealt with seriously.
Thank you for sharing that. And Professor, how do you analyze the current status of Russia, Ukraine, the negotiations that are supposed to take place soon?
Well, there is not much progress, not much going on, and I've said that many times before to a program. I don't think that they would be easy to force Zelensky to really to make some efforts to achieve peace. He doesn't want it. He simply doesn't want it. He wants to keep on the war to get the support of the West, to get the money, and to keep his position. He doesn't care about the population of Ukraine, who is now starving and being confronted by cold and sufferings. He doesn't care about his soldiers. All he wants is to keep on getting money, keep on getting armament, and continue the war to keep himself in the spotlight.
Thank you very much, Professor Toleraya, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us. Now we move on to Israel and Australia. Israeli President Isaac Herzog has told Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese that anti-Semitism has no place in Australia. Herzog made these remarks during a memorial service at the Chabad of Bondi synagogue in Sydney, honoring the 15 victims of a December terror attack. Herzog has condemned the attack as an act of hatred, emphasizing that such actions are unacceptable anywhere. He has praised Albanese for Australia's new legislation on gun control, hate speech, and combating extremist groups. Herzog has also met with victims' families before joining Albanese for dinner. The visit highlights ongoing efforts to combat anti-Semitism and hate globally. Now we welcome back Professor Georgi Toleraya. He is joining us live. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Now, looking at Israel and Australia's relationship, as in Australia, we have seen some more attacks towards in relation to anti-Semitism. Do you think Australia will be leveling up to make sure these kind of things don't happen again? What are we to make of this Israel-Australia relations now? Is it becoming better?
I've spent several years working in Australia, and I know Bondi area pretty well. I live nearby, and there was a big Jewish community there. And I wouldn't say that there was or is any kind of extraordinary anti-Semitism in Australia. Australia is a very multicultural and tolerant country. And personally, I think that President Herzog, who is himself is a very controversial figure, he's one of the figures who is complicit in the terrorism and genocide in Gaza. So there were protests in Australia against his visit. Actually, even a large part of Jewish community in Australia protested against him being invited. And I personally think that the agenda of this visit shouldn't have included his visit to Bondi. I think it's sort of provocative. And he's not the one to dictate to Albanese, to Premier Albanese, about how Australia should behave in its internal policy, especially when there's no actual reason for that. I think that Israel demands too much from Australia. And I believe that, of course, Australian leadership will have to agree and just to not to make contradiction show. But I don't think it would really help the future relations between Israel and Australia.
With that, I'd like to thank Professor Georgi Toleraya for joining us and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to U.S. A Honduran immigrant family in Fridley, Minnesota has been staying inside their trailer for a month, fearing arrest by the ICE. The family seeking asylum has faced hardships since both parents lost their jobs. The mother worked at a restaurant that closed after an ICE raid, and the father witnessed his colleagues being arrested. Meanwhile, Brenda Lewis, the Ferdley School District Superintendent, patrols the area to protect immigrant children from ICE. Let's listen in.
I received a message shortly after leaving my house that there was a confirmed ICE vehicle in our Club West community parking lot. So I was able to head there, and as soon as I pulled into the parking lot here, I could see that there was 4 agents inside in tactical gear. Once they started to tap on my windshield, I did make the decision that I would roll down my window. And as soon as I did that, the agent on my driver's side reached in and unlocked my door himself, which allowed the agents on my passenger side to open the door, unbuckle my seatbelts. I continued to ask if I was under arrest. I told them that I wanted my rights read to me. I asked what I was being charged with, why I was being pulled from the vehicle. None of these questions were answered. They just told me that they were going to extract me from the vehicle.
Now we move on to France. French President Emmanuel Macron will be visiting India from February 17th to 19th at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The two leaders will hold talks to strengthen bilateral ties under the Horizon 2047 roadmap, discussing regional and global issues including cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. Macron will also be in Mumbai to inaugurate the India-France Year of Innovation, which will run throughout 2026. On February 19th, he will participate in the AI Impact Summit in New Delhi. This visit builds on the mutual trust established during Modi's visit to France in 2025 and deepens the India-France strategic partnership. Now we stay in France. French prosecutors have charged a 79-year-old former educator with aggravated rape and sexual assault. The man, Jacques Levougle, allegedly abused 89 minors across multiple countries between 1967 and 2022. The crimes occurred in countries including Germany, Switzerland, Morocco, and India and Colombia. Authorities have discovered the details on a USB stick containing the suspect's writings, which documented the abuse. Levougle has been in custody since his indictment earlier this year. Prosecutors Etienne Mathieu also revealed that Levougle confessed to the 1970s and 1990s killings of his mother and an aunt. The investigation is ongoing and authorities are urging additional victims to come forward. Let's listen in.
La brigade de Visil va donc s'emparer de ces fichiers numériques, ouvrir une enquête et va investiguer. Travail très long puisque c'est divisé en tomes, il y a 15 tomes, c'est vraiment une matière très, très dense. Et les enquêteurs vont devoir lire la totalité de ces écrits et vont recenser 89 mineurs, l'évocation de 89 mineurs. Les premiers faits remontent à 1967, les derniers faits remontent à 2022. Il s'agit essentiellement d'évocations de rapports sexuels avec des mineurs de 13 à 17 ans.
Now we have a breaking news coming in from UK. United Kingdom's Prime Minister Keir Starmer has described his cabinet as strong and united amid growing pressure over resignations after Peter Mandelson's appointment concerns. Following a cabinet meeting today, the Prime Minister thanked his team for their support and reaffirmed his commitment to leading the party. Prime Minister Starmer also voiced backing for Scottish Labour leader Anas Sava, who remains the most senior figure to call for the PM's resignation. Despite ongoing challenges, Prime Minister Starmer has emphasized that ministers are focused on fulfilling their mandate to drive change and will continue prioritizing the issues that matter most to the British public. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.